Okay, so hi everyone. Good morning to me. Good afternoon for the European people, or a good day wherever you are. And welcome. Thanks for having me. My name is Liron, and in this session, I'm going to talk about database patching and the chaos it brings, and hopefully make some order in that, so it will be easier to handle. You have all my contact information here, my Twitter account, my email, my website. I have LinkedIn as well. You can go there. I should actually add that to the presentation. So let's start by introducing me shortly. Okay, so I'm originally from Israel, which is the purple area here in the Middle East. And just over 6 years ago, I moved all the way across the world. And as Gianni said, I live in Vancouver in Canada now. So as I said, it's morning for me, 8 a.m. But it's great that, you know, the one benefit of online conferences is that actually you can speak at many of them all over the world. You don't need to travel, which is a little bit of a bummer because we don't meet people in person, but at least we can, you know, join conferences that we cannot travel to. So at least that. I've been an Oracle DBA since Oracle 7 in 1998. Since 2002, I've been a senior database consultant, and I still am working with all kind of clients on all kind of database projects. I have my own website, go to dba.com. Sorry. I have my technical blog there, but not only, I have all kinds of different resources and presentations and all kind of stuff. So you're welcome to go and take a look. And I've been involved with the community. So I'm an Oracle ACE director, and I'm the president of the BC Oracle user group for British Columbia here in Vancouver. And also I'm involved in two initiatives. One of them is the Beyond Tech Skills podcast, where Mike was in our podcast not too long ago. We are talking about the tech world, but not technical stuff. So you won't hear about Python, Java, and database there. We are talking about more of the soft skills area. So you'll hear about interviews, about diversity and inclusion in the tech world, management, all kind of this stuff. So if you're interested, if you like podcasts, go to your favorite app and just look for Beyond Tech Skills and subscribe. And the last thing is the MESH program, where I'm part of the core team, and the program is built to bring and assist new speakers in tech conferences. So if you want to become a speaker, you haven't spoken in conferences, or you know someone that wants to or should, but they are a little bit afraid, or they not feel ready, or they need some assistance, this program is for you. The concept is to help new speakers in the tech conferences. It's completely free, and we go through a process there and help people build the presentation, build the abstract, submit, and present. So if you know someone that might benefit from that, again, completely free, just go there, meshprogram.wordpress.com. Check the process, check who we are, check what we do, and if you're interested, you can register there, and we'll be in touch. Okay, so that's it. Let's start with patching. So what I'm not going to talk about today, there are two things that I'm not going to talk about, and that's upgrades. Okay, the session is about patching, not upgrades and migrations. And if you want to talk about upgrades and migrations, this is Mike, and I think he was here earlier today, right? Talking about the 21C migration new features or something. So Mike is a great guy. He's a product manager for upgrades and migration, and he talks a lot. And the team, he's part of a team, and he talks a lot about all of that. Okay, so upgrades, moving from one version to a newer version, migration, all of that. That's Mike. I'm not going to talk about that today. The next thing is OPatch. OPatch is the tool that we are using to patch the database, but it's only the tool that you actually use. So you have all the information in the README files of the patches. I don't want to talk about the syntax of OPatch or the features or how to use it. I don't think that's too interesting. I'm going to talk about the concepts, about the problems, about things that you need to consider, you need to know, stuff like that, not the technicality of actually applying the patch using OPatch and the syntax and stuff like that. So I'm not going to really dive into that today as well. Let's start with a quick review about versions and supported versions. So as you can see, this is from my Oracle support note at the bottom, 7.42060.1, and you can see the timeline of the supported versions. So we are now at the end of 2021, which means that 12.102 is in extended support, 12.202 is a, how do they call it? Limited error correction. That's something new that they introduced relatively lately. And then 19C is at the Premier support, and 21C was introduced not too long ago. So you can see here all the support terms and all the options. I don't want to get into all the details of that. Everything in the support, in the My Oracle support note, and that's what I put the number there. And I'm going to talk about why the 19C support is so long and 21C is short, but this is the flow. So Oracle with 18C, I think it was introduced, they moved to a concept of release families. Okay, in previous years before that, we had a release. And we had major release and minor release or something like that, like 10G release 1 and 10G release 2 and 11G the same. And now it works in a different way. So every year, Oracle releases a new version based on the number of the year. So in 2018, it was 18C, 2019, 19C. They skipped 20 because of the pandemic and all the mess. So in 2021, it was 21C and so on. And the releases are grouped to 3 releases in one release family. The first 2 releases are called innovation releases, and the last one is called long-term release. Okay, and you see the innovation releases in orange and the long-term release in blue, sort of. And the difference is that the innovation release has only 2 years of Premier support. It doesn't have extended support, no extended support at all. And it won't have RURs, okay? And we're going to talk about RU and RURs, but it won't have. And 21C, I verified that yesterday, 21C doesn't have RUR, only RU. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. The long-term support release will have 5 years of Premier support and 3-year extended support, and it will have RURs as well. Okay, so currently, and it's supposed to be the long-term release should be, you know, the more stable, the more long-term supported release, while the innovation releases are the ones that Oracle introduced more and more new features and some new stuff, and just an introduction to all kinds of different concepts. So it depends on your organization, what you prefer. If you are a relatively slow organization, needs time to upgrade and longer support for each release, you should upgrade only for the long-term support releases. You should be in 19C now and wait for 23. If you are a fast-paced organization and want to take advantage of all the new features, all the cool stuff, you can upgrade every year or a couple of years and take advantage of the innovation releases as well. There should be, oh, sorry, I missed that. I need to press a button here to show that. But just make sure that you know that 22C was canceled. So in theory, we have a release family of 3 versions, but 20C was canceled. So we started with 21C, and Oracle already announced that 22C is also canceled. So the next release will be the long-term release of 23C, as far as I know. It might change, obviously, but this is the information I have for now. Yeah, January reminds us that we saw Mike and Daniel 3 hours ago. I was asleep, but you might, so you should remember them. So why should we patch a database? Okay, there are 3 main reasons. One of them is security vulnerabilities. Okay, security is always a thing that we need to be aware of. Always in every complex application, there are vulnerabilities. And Oracle, just like the other vendors, they release security patches for their product, the Oracle database in our case. So every quarter we have a patch, and this patch includes some security vulnerabilities patches. So if you want to be up to date with all of the security patches or fixes, you should install patches. The second thing is obviously bug fixes. If you with every patch, obviously, Oracle realizes that there are some bugs. We always have bugs, so they fix the major bugs or the most relevant bugs. So obviously, we should patch for that. And the third thing is support. If you have any problem at all, usually if you contact support, they will ask you to install the latest patch. And the reason for that is that sometimes you hit a bug that they actually not sure, or they don't really know where it's coming from, but maybe in one of the patches, the development fixed something in that area and actually fixed your bug. Okay, so in order to make sure that this bug still exists and was not fixed between your version and the last patch, they usually ask you to install patches. So if you are already installing patches and you are up to date, it's easier to get support if you have any problem. So when I started thinking about this session, I talked to people and we all said, what, patching is quite easy. We have RU release update and RUR release update revision, and database bundle patch, that's for Windows, and JVM patches and DST patches and OneOff patches. And then we install patches on a standby environment and rack environment. Okay, so maybe it's not that easy. Okay, and this is what I meant in the title, making order in the database patching chaos. Because there are so many patches and everyone is specific for something, and we have more advanced environments like standby and rack and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about all of this, or almost all of this, and hopefully it will be clearer. Okay, so when you want to install a patch, first of all, you need to go to the MOS node 756671.1. You have all the latest patches there. Okay, and if you don't remember that, each person has a different way to get into this patch. I go to my Oracle support and I just search for PSU, which is the old name or old patching mechanism before it was changed to RU and RUR. So just search for PSU and enter, and you'll get to this node. Okay, and in this node, as I said, you see all these different patches that you have. I hope you can see my mouse cursor. So you have here database release update, that's RU, and you have database release update revision, that's RUR, and GI release and database and Windows and JVM and all the patches. So first of all, you need to know which one to install, and we'll go over that, and what the right process to do that. So this is the first note that you need to go in order to find the patch and have all the links that you need. So let's start talking about types of patches. We'll start with RU and RURs. I mentioned that a few times before, so now let's understand exactly what it means. So RU and RUR, RUs and RURs are released every quarter. Usually, sometimes there was one exception that I remember that they released 2 of them in the same quarter or something like that. But generally, they are released every quarter. There are always rack rolling and standby first patches, and we'll talk about that later on. RU is a release update. That's like, let's say, the major patch. It includes lots of fixes. It might introduce new features or behavior changes, and you identify that by the second number of the version. So if we're talking about 18, it will be 1813 or 1814 or 19, 1910. The current one is 1913. So the second number is the RU level. The RUR, release update revision, is only for regression fixes and security fixes. So all the security problems that were fixed in the RUR are fixed in the they were fixed in the RU of a specific quarter. They will be fixed in the RUR for this specific quarter. So if we are in October and we just got patches released not too long ago, I think it was last week or earlier this week, then the RUR 1913 will include all kinds of different features and security fixes. The RUR of October 21 will include the same security fixes, but not new features, not behavior changes, only security fixes and regression fixes, okay? And we identify that by using the third number of the version, so 19.9.1 or 19.12.1 or 1911.1, that's the current ones, okay? So how does it work? First of all, I said RURs won't be available for innovation releases. I need to remove 22C from here, but 21C and other innovation releases in the future won't have RURs, only RUs. Now, the RURs are supported on top of a specific RU for 2 versions or 6 months, okay? 2 patch cycles or 6 months, and we'll see that in a second. And RURs includes all their own RU changes, okay? So let's see. We are in October 2019, and we decided to install 19.5. That's the RU of October 2019, okay? The next patch cycle, the next quarter, will be January 2020, okay? And as you can see, we have 3 options. All of them were released in January 2020. 19.6, that's the RU. 19.5.1 is the RUR on top of 19.5. And 19.4.2 is the RUR on top 19.4. So in this case, we decide to go with RUR and we install the 19.5.1, okay? So we have all the new features and behavior changes and everything that were introduced in October 2019, that's 19.5. And in January 2020, we only get on top of that, only regression fixes and security fixes of January 2020. The next patch cycle, the next quarter, April 2020, we have the option to install either 19.7 and get all the new fixes and new behavior changes and and everything for April, or 19.6.1, okay, which is all the things from RU of January and the bug fixes and stuff from April, or what we do is 19.5.2. So here we don't have any new features that were introduced in 19.6 or 19.7. We have only 19.5, but we do have regression patches of April 2020 and security fixes of April 2020, okay? But now that's 6 months from 19.5, there will not be 19.5.3, okay? So when we move in July 2020, we don't have an option to stay with 19.5.2. So in this case, we install 19.6.2. Just be aware that from 19.5.2 to 19.6.2, you get all the new features and behavior changes that were introduced in 19.6, okay? And on top of that, all the security features, security fixes and regression fixes from July 2020, okay? I hope this is clear. So we can move on. If you have questions, again, the chat, and I have two monitors here, so you can ask a question and I'll see it immediately on the other monitor. So if you have questions, feel free in the chat or the Q&A. Okay, so that was about RU. Oh, one last thing about RU and RURs. When you want to install, when you're thinking or planning to install RU or RURs, in the same note that I presented before with all the patches, you have a known issues column, okay? Make sure you click on that, you check what is known about the RU or RUR that you want to install. And sometimes they say, oh, we have a known problem, you need to install this OneOff to fix it. And we'll talk about OneOffs in a second. Make sure these patches that are required or recommended, that you have them available, because sometimes I've seen cases where they said, yeah, you need to install this patch on top of this RU or RUR, and this patch wasn't available, either because it wasn't available completely or wasn't available for my specific platform. Okay, so if this is the case and you want this patch, it's recommended, open an SR and ask for this patch to be created. Okay, so that's important. Okay, that's about it, about RU and RURs. Let's move on. So GI patch, we have two different types of patch in this regard. One is the database patch, and you'll see that on the list. I'm going back a little bit. As you can see here, this is the database release, the first line, and then the second line is the GI release, okay? These are, both of them are RU 1913. One is database, one is GI. So the GI one is for the grid infrastructure. If you're using RAC, Real Application Cluster, or Oracle Restart, both of them have the GI installed. So you need to install the GI patch on the GI home. The versions should be, the GI is the ASM version, because ASM is running from the GI home. And it's supposed to be larger or equal to the database version. If you want the entire matrix, you have the MyOracle support node number over there. The GI patch, when you download it, it includes the database patch. Okay, so you don't need to download the database as well if you have GI and database at the same version. So if you have 19 database and GI, you just need to download the GI patch. If you have GI 19 but database 18, you need to download obviously the 18 database patch as well. The GI home does not need JVM patch. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. And if you look at the README of the GI patch, it says use OPatch Auto to install under root, to install automatically the GI and all the databases homes. And it can be done. It can be separately as well if you have some flags there to OPatch Auto to decide which homes you want to install. But you can use just OPatch Auto without any special flags, and it will install the patch on the GI home and all the database homes. But it will only install the patches on the database homes that have running databases, okay? And it will also execute data patch. Data patch is the script that you need to run on the database after the patch. And it will execute data patch on running databases. So if you have 3 database homes and you have a running database only in one of them, this home will be patched, but the other 2 won't. So you will have to go and patch them manually or with OPatch Auto with the flag, okay? Also, there is a zero downtime grid infrastructure patching, and that's available since Oracle 19.8. And the concept here is that you install a new home, you install a patch on the new home while everything is running from the older home with the unpatched software. And then you just execute a command. I don't remember exactly the details, but then what it does, it moves everything to the new home, patched home, and start running. So the downtime is smaller, okay? Next. JVM patch. OJVM patch is the Oracle Java Virtual Machine patch in the database. It's only relevant to the database home, not the GI, as I said in the previous slide. You need to do that for databases that have OJVM installed, and you can check that with the, I forgot, DBA registry, I think, view. If you have OJVM installed, even if you don't need it or don't use it, you should install the patch because it includes all kinds of security fixes that you might have vulnerabilities for because you have OJVM installed, okay? Until 18.4, it required startup upgrade. That means complete downtime even for real application cluster. There are some inclusions and it's a bit complicated. It requires Java downtime if you do use Java, and probably until 21C, I haven't verified that. That's something that I need to verify. Mike, again, has this blog. You have the link here, and he has all the information about startup upgrade, when you need to do that, when you don't need to do that, how to do that, and so on. So that's a link, and that's a good information if you're using OJVM in the database. If you don't use OJVM in the database, my recommendation is just remove it completely. Or if you install new database, don't install it, okay? And then you won't need to install the OJVM patch, okay? To be up to date with security and everything. By the way, Oracle officially recommends to install the OJVM patch on the database, but they claim that they recommend that because if in the future you'll create a database from this home and this database will need to have OJVM, you'll have the patch. But you know, I don't work that way. Usually I don't install OJVM if I don't need to, and I don't install the patches if I don't need to. And if in the future I will need the database with OJVM, I might install the patches, or I should install the patches, or I might install a new home with a patch and run the database from there. Okay, so you have more information about OJVM patches in the note here below, the My Oracle Support 2217.053.1. So that's OJVM patch. Also in the large list on the note on My Oracle Support, you see also combo patches. And you have two types of combo patches. One is database and OJVM, and the other one is GI, grid infrastructure, and OJVM. These are available only for RU, not RURs. And basically, it's just for download convenience, okay? If you unzip these patches, you'll see that basically they have two patches in the zip file. One is the GI patch, one is the OJVM, or one is the database, one is the OJVM, depends which one you downloaded. So basically, it's just two links that are kind of redundant, but Oracle decided that these patches are downloaded together many times, because many people have OJVM in their database home and they want to patch it, or in the databases and they want to patch the database with the OJVM. So they decided to have one link or one patch that includes both. But basically, you just download them, you extract them, you get two patches, and you should install the patches separately, okay? So if you go and download the database patch and the OJVM patch separately, you'll get exactly the same thing, okay? So don't worry about that. If you want to install RUR instead of RU, you will have to do that anyway and download them separately, okay? So that's only for convenience. If this is what you need, you can just use this patch and download both the patches together. Next, OneOff patches. Okay, so OneOff patches are small fixes to fix a specific bug or specific issue, okay? And there are tons of them, okay? Now, if you hit a specific bug, you might need to install OneOff patches, or if you install RU or RUR, sometimes if you check the known issues link that I showed you before, it will say, oh, there is a well-known issue in this RU, install this patch as well. And then it's a one-off that you need to install on top of the RU, okay? One thing to remember about one-offs is that they fix a very specific thing. And many times you have conflicts between them, like between two one-offs or between one-off and RU or RUR or any other larger patch. So every time you want to install a one-off patch, you need to make sure that there is no conflict, okay? And when do you need to do that? In two cases. First of all, before you install a one-off patch, okay? So if you have a problem and we are, let's say, we installed 19.10, just as an example, and we hit a problem and we contact Oracle support, or we looked at Moss and we found that this is a well-known bug and we need to install a one-off patch. We need to make sure that the one-off patch can be installed on top of the 19.10 that we have. It might be okay, it might conflict with 19.10, and then we need to ask from Oracle support to get a patch specifically for 19.10, so there won't be a conflict. And the second thing is, let's assume we have 19.10 and we have a one-off on top of that, okay? And now we want to install a new patch, a new RU 19.13, that's the one who got released, which got released this week or last week. But we do have a one-off to fix a different problem that we had in the system, right? So before we install 19.13, we need to make sure that the one-off that we already have doesn't conflict with 19.13, because there are three options here. One, it's that it's not conflicting, and that's perfect. We just install 19.13 and we're good. Second option is that this actual bug was fixed in 1913, and then we don't need this one-off anymore. And you have all the information. If you look for bug fixes in 1913, you'll see a list, and you'll know that your one-off, your bug that was fixed by the one-off got implemented in 1913, or there is a conflict. And if there is a conflict, we need to go back to Oracle support before we install 1913 and say, oh, we have this one-off patch, we need a version, it's conflicting with 1913, we need a version for 1913. And then the process will be uninstall the one-off patch, install the RU, and then install the new one-off that doesn't conflict. Okay, I hope this is clear. To check all of that, you have the analyzer tool. I have to say that sometimes it's not working perfectly, but you might need to play with it and try a few times, but it works and it does help. So the concept is that you create the OPatch LS inventory file. You print that into a file. You take this file, you upload to my Oracle support. You say, I want to install this patch, and it checks for conflicts. And it will say, if there is a conflict, that there is a conflict, and if there is not conflict, which version you need to install. And you get there, if you go to a specific patch, you see the README, as you can see here at the bottom, the README, the download, the add to plan links, and the analyze with OPatch. You just click there and you upload your LS inventory, and this tool will check for conflicts. And this is very important because you don't want to see conflicts when you actually, during the maintenance window to install the patch. You want to make sure before that there will not be conflicts. Okay. No questions so far? No, we're good. So let's move on. The last type of patch that I'm going to talk about is a DST patch, a daylight saving. And the daylight saving patch requires startup upgrade until 21C. I haven't checked that yet, but in 21C, one of the features is that daylight saving patch doesn't require startup upgrade. And again, I need to verify that. The thing with startup upgrade is that in order to start the database in startup upgrade, you need a complete downtime in real application clusters. It will require longer downtime in DG environments, and it requires standby to be mounted. okay? So not active standby, and I think I'm going to talk about that later on again, but just be aware that if any patch requires startup upgrade, you cannot use active standby. When the standby is open in read-only mode, it won't apply any patches that were applied when the database was in startup upgrade mode. So in order to apply these changes into the standby, you have to mount the standby. And after these changes were applied and you started the database in normal mode again, you can open read-only the standby, okay? In multi-tenant, it's also a bit tricky because the DST patch, you install the DST patch specifically on the CDB or a specific PDB. So if you install the DST patch in the CDB, it doesn't affect any PDBs. If you update the daylight saving patch in one PDB, it doesn't affect other PDBs. So you have to install that in the CDB and in all of the PDBs, okay? And also, and this is very important, you cannot update the daylight saving information or install the DST patch on the PDB seed, okay? And when you create a new PDB, it takes all the information, including the DST information from the PDB seed. So basically, if we are now in a version, if I remember correctly, DST version 36, okay, and my database has 32, let's say, or 34, let's say 32 just for the example. Okay, I have 32, I want to install the 36 version, I go and install that on the CDB and all the PDBs. But if tomorrow I create a new PDB, the new PDB is actually duplicates from the PDB seed, and it will have the version 32, and I need to install specifically the DST patch on this new PDB when I create it in order to have everything up to date. And I have a question here from Frank. When must one apply the DST patch? DST is the daylight saving. If you have timestamp with time zone or timestamp with local time zone, I think these are the only two that are affected by that. You need to install the DST patches if you use certain time zones. So for example, the concept of DST is the changes from daylight saving time to winter time. So if, I don't know, tomorrow, British Columbia, and we might do that at one point, decide to cancel the winter time and stay with the DST, with daylight saving all year long, okay? And my database has information about BC in a times stamp with time zone data type, it will switch between winter time and daylight saving time until I install the patch, and the patch says, okay, BC decided to cancel winter time and stay with daylight saving time all year long. Okay, so it's these daylight saving issues, and I'm pretty sure that if you use this stuff, you'll hit issues. I had that with one of my clients. They had a problem with the 1 hour difference in certain months of the year because of that, because the date of the clock changed. So we had to install the daylight saving, the DST patch, in order to synchronize that. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to complex environments. And we'll start with standby database. Standby database, when you install any patch on standby database, this patch in the README, you'll see if this is a standby first patch or not standby first patch, okay? The ones that are standby first patches can have shorter downtime. It depends how you implement that, and we'll see that in the next slide. There is a confusion with RUs and my Oracle support. There are two notes that actually contradict each other. One says DataGuard standby first patch apply, and the other one is how to apply patches at PSU or CPU in the DataGuard physical standby configuration. Don't use the second one, use the first one, because the second one is longer downtime and it's not optimized. The first one has the right way of doing that if you want to minimize your downtime. Okay. Now, if you have a patch that it says specifically that it is not a standby first patch, or actually I'm not sure if it says that or it doesn't say anything, but standby first patches is definitely there in the README. So if you don't see that, it means that a non-standby, this is a non-standby first patch, and this requires to be both servers or all environment. It depends how many standby databases you have. Patch them together. So you need to take down both or all primary and all the standbys, patch everything together, and then start them. Okay, you cannot have one of them running while you patch, and this requires a longer downtime. There are not many of those, but I've seen some. Okay, most patches that I've seen are standby first. Also, startup upgrade patches that specifically require startup upgrade, like the daylight saving until 21C, cannot be applied to an active standby database, and I said that before. Okay, so you have to shut down the standby, mount it, patch, startup upgrade, patch the primary, get all the information synchronized or applied into the standby, and then you can open the standby in read-only again. Okay, but you'll see if it's open, you'll see that it stopped synchronizing. Okay, it will just stop. It will give you an error. I don't remember the error, but it will give you an error in the alert log. It won't get synchronized. It will just stop. And then you can shut it down, mount it, have everything applied, and then open it up again in read-only mode. So how do we do that? In this case, we have 19.5, Oracle 19.5. The application points to the primary, and the primary is synchronizing the secondary. And this is the node that I mentioned before. And how do we patch standby first patches? In this case, I think it's 19.6. So the way is standby first. We patch the standby to 19.6. Okay, everything keeps getting synchronized, no problem at all. And then we do a switchover. And now the primary is the 19.6 and the secondary 19.5. No problem at all. Everything is synchronizing. The application, we point that to work with the 19.6 one. And then we patch the secondary to 19.6. Okay. So the only downtime was during the switchover. We did the switchover. It's a short downtime. We pointed the app to the new primary, and that's it. And don't forget, in RU and RURs, you need to run the data patch script, and it says that in the README, so that's not a problem. You just need to make sure you do that after everything is 19.6 already. Okay, so that's a standby first patch. How about rack? So rack rolling, we have 19.5, and we want to install 19.6, and we have 3 nodes. We just install 19.6 on one node, and we restart it, and the other 2 are operating and working fine. Okay, and once 19.6 is up, everything is working, all 3 are available, the application can use all of them. And then we do the same with the second one. While we restart node 2, connections can be made to 19.6 to the node 1. So actually there is no downtime at all. The application always has 2 servers at least to work with. Okay, so we can migrate the connections from node 2 to node 1 and restart node 2. And now again, migrate the connection from node 3 to the other 2 and install 19.6. And after the reboot, everything is 19.6 and everything goes to the protocol of 19.6, and the changes, everything is happening automatically. Don't forget to run data patch after that. And data patch needs to be run only from one node. It doesn't matter which one, but only after everything is patched, 19.6. Okay. How about rack non-rolling patches? So if the README doesn't say rack rolling, or it does say non-rack rolling patch, and again, these are quite rare. Okay, there are patches like that, but most patches that I met, they are rack rolling. So we have 3 nodes. and we have all of them unpatched, but it's not rack rolling, which means that we cannot have some of the nodes patched and some of the nodes unpatched. So in order to get everything to the patched level with minimum downtime, we'll do something like that. We'll patch node 1, but we will leave it down. And now we have only 2 nodes serving the application, okay? And then we'll patch node 2, and we will leave it down. And now we have only node 3 working with the application, okay? So we get less resources, but more uptime, okay? So now we have node 2 and node 1. They are patched, but they are down. I cannot start them because they are incompatible with node 3, right? But now when I patch node 3, I can start all of them together. So we'll have minimum downtime, okay? And there is a question here. Is there any way to list all applied online patches from the running database? I don't know what you mean by online patches, but you can see what patches you have on the database home or the grid infrastructure home. You just go to the Oracle Home OPatch, and you have OPatch LS patches, and you see all the patch numbers that you have. Okay. Oh, online means applied without restarting the instance. I'm not sure. No, I don't think so. I think that you can get the patches, but the patch lists, but I don't think you have this information. Okay. Next, out of place patch, and almost done. Out of place patch. Okay, so if you want to patch out of place means that you don't patch the software that you use right now, but you install a software on the side, you patch it, and then you just move to work with that. So you can create a patched gold image. So you basically install a patch, install a new Oracle Home, you patch it, you can create gold image from it, okay? And then you can deploy the gold image to a new home, and then you just move the database to the new home and run data patch. So instead of taking down the database and install the patch on the home, which might take some time, you bring a new home patched already, and you just move the database to the new home. Much less of a downtime. You just shut down the database, move, all the TNS names, SP file if you don't have that, or an ASM or something. So SP file and all these SQLnet, all the important files. And then once you do that, you just start the database from the new home, and that's it. Okay. Don't forget to run data patch after that if you need to. Okay. So it eliminates the patch installation while the database is down, so it's shorted downtime. So to conclude this, how do we plan a patching process? So first of all, you need to figure out which patch you want to install. RU, RUR, do you need a grid infrastructure patch? Do you need OJVM patch, and so on? Check if you have existing OneOffs, and if you have, check them if you need them on top of the new RU or RUR, or they are not needed anymore because they were implemented in the RU or RUR, or if they are conflicting with the RU and RUR and you need a new version of them, okay? Check with the note, with the known issues, if you need additional OneOffs on top of the RU and RUR that are required or recommended by Oracle for this specific patch. Once you have a list, I said that, but I'll say that again. Once you have a list of all the OneOff patches that you need, check that they are all available, okay? And if they are not available, open SR and ask for them. After you do that, prepare a procedure to install the RU, RUR, if you have standby, if you have real application cluster, how you're going to install all of it. Prepare the procedure, test it in test environment. This is super important. Make sure that everything goes smoothly. And once it does, just use this procedure to deploy to production. And I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. So if you have questions, I'm here. If you want to, again, be in touch, all the my contact information is here. And I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you very much. Let's see. I do have a question here. How do you move a DB to a new patched home? Oh, that's easy. You just shut down the database. You change the Oracle home environment variable and the path and everything. You switch to that and you copy the SP file and everything, and you just start up the database from the new home. Okay, another question. Could you please tell about read-only Oracle homes, how they could help to decrease downtime? Okay, so I'm not sure they could decrease downtime, but the concept of the read-only Oracle homes is that all the files that are not part of the Oracle home itself, like all the trace files, all the SP files, TNS names, all the files that are specific to your environment, do not sit in the Oracle home anymore. Okay, so if you want to move Oracle database from one home to another, you won't need to start copying files like TNS name and SP files, an SP file from one home to another. Everything is shared under the Oracle base, if I remember correctly. And then you just change the environment variable of Oracle home and path if you need, and you just start the database. Okay, so it makes it the entire process a little bit easier, because you don't need to find all the files and copy them. Everything is in the same place, even if you move to a different Oracle home.